Coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
Good Tuesday evening to all of you. Welcome into episode 118 of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. We're brought to you as always by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I've got the fart shirt on today. We're going full blown fart. That is an Homage Apparel shirt.
Oh, it is.
There's a link in the description down below. Take you to the Cleveland Browns collection. Get yourself stocked up. Don't forget, there's a good chance we'll be giving away some Victory Monday shirts here coming up, depending on how this thing goes. But go check our friends over at Homage. Link in the description down below. You really want to not miss out on the awesome stuff they got going on over there. Nick, how are you on this week one Tuesday?
I'll tell you what, Jacob, I'm feeling good. I'm thinking about Sunday and being, you know what? So the last couple weekends I've been in Philadelphia, Ohio Pile, just not here. So I'm back in Cleveland. I'm back here. I'm ready to go. We are going to game. You, I, and our good friend Andy over at the Dog Chug. Love our guys at the Dog Chug. We're giving away socks right now. I'm picking a Ross the sock boss, have teamed up and we're giving away two winners picked tomorrow, two pairs coming out to you. And I just, you know what? All of a sudden, I don't care if it's like 90 degrees up in here in Cleveland today. It was a toasty one, and it doesn't really feel like football weather. But I'll tell you what, you can see the leaves are changing a little bit. All of a sudden, it's fall to me. It's fall to me. Feels like fall. I know Sunday we're going to be in the media lot. I can't wait. Every year now that I've been on Twitter or X or whatever,
it's still weird when people say X. I'm always just like,
yeah, I'm adjusting. I'm definitely adjusting. But you always see the Saturday before the home opener, like the line start outside the community lot. Everybody always documents that. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I love that. I love it. I love getting excited about it. I'll tell you what, if I could, I would like go down there and just like kind of walk around and say hello. It's maybe like a pre-muni lot. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, like on our way to like what were our Saturday night shenanigans, we go over there and just check in on their Saturday night.
How's it going? You know,
get some high fives out, maybe some water so they can hydrate for the shenanigans they're going to get into on Sunday. Guys, we've got a ton of new subs over the last month, so if you're new here, welcome. Hi.
Hi.
If you want to support us, subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up to all of these videos, and we'll get it in front of more people. And tell your friends, even if it's just to make fun of us, we don't discriminate. I don't care if it's a hate view or a like view. The green spins just the same.
Well, because I'll tell you what, no matter what you feel, if you're subscribed and we hit our 2,000 subscriber goal, which we are knocking on the door of, we like to give away free stuff. Homage really is awesome, and they like to help us give away free stuff. So you will be entered regardless of how you feel. And so don't forget, at 2,000 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway, and we're just about there. So I'm hoping maybe next week we'll see how things go. They win.
It becomes a whole new different thing, right? Yeah, it's like, okay. That's
enthusiasm. Right. Like right now it's enthusiasm, but it could be like genuine hype if they win Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's where we're at.
Hype to you know what I mean?
I don't know. It is what it is. Mitch is hanging out. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you over here.
Which Mitch Metz, we missed your donation last week. It was right at the end. Thank you so much for your generosity, friend.
Yes, we really appreciate it. I did say I did feel really bad about it because I seen it like right as I was closing the show. We had 27-24 prediction.
MC MVP right there.
Drew says one chip Nick incoming.
True story. Jacob told me, he's like, don't forget to order that chip. I got to get it. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, I told him. I also told his girlfriend so that the responsible one knew.
That's true. She is.
How do you feel about the Bengals coach wasn't too sure if he was gonna? I think that's bullshit.
I do too.
I thought it was bullshit all along that anybody who thought Joe Burrow wasn't gonna play I mean, there's always a chance you re-injure an injury. Like if he gets re-injured in practice, then yeah, he might not play. But if it's just from the injury he suffered a few weeks ago, I think that's crap.
That's some good old-fashioned hogwash. Let me tell you. I just wanted to use the word hogwash.
Well, that's like when they're like, I'm not going to tell you who the quarterback is because it's a competitive advantage. I think it's one of those things.
Yeah.
It's like, we know who the quarterback is. It's like, Arizona, quit pretending that one of those guys is like, and I love Josh Dobbs, but quit pretending that like it's much of a competition. Like you've got, I won't say it because I don't want to say anything mean about Josh Dobbs. That's why I won't say it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you haven't checked it out and you're curious, Eddie Mack and I did our Browns record prediction game by game last night here on the YouTube. My 12-5. I think the way I got to 12. Well, I said it, and I said I think we're going to go with 12 wins, and I said, but I really was interested how, you know what I mean? Like I told Eddie this at the beginning of the show. I'm always interested when you do these predictions and foreshadowing and all this thing, because you always get asked, you're like, how many wins is the Browns going to get? And you're like, 10, 11, 4, whatever it is you think. And then I got the schedule up to my right over here. I look at it and I'm like, okay, I think they win 12 games just purely like from forecasting how good the team is. I think that's a 12-win team. But then I look at it and I'm like, okay, where are the 12? And in turn, where are the 5 losses that I think they'll have?
Sure.
And, I did get a little spicy saying one of those 5 losses will be to the Indianapolis Colts. I have them beating San Francisco after the bye and then having a letdown game against the Colts.
I've been going to one away Browns game for almost a decade now. And I'm going to Indianapolis, Jacob. And in the almost decade that I've been going to away Browns games, we've seen 1 win.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If you put this negative juju on me again, I can't do it. I can't keep traveling all these places and losing, Jacob. The last one was when Jabril Peppers sacked Case Keenum on the final play in Denver on, I think, like the Saturday before Christmas.
I know that I was working at the prison that night. I was watching the game I think I was in Delta Pod. So that was the thing that I was doing. I worked in a prison. I wasn't in prison.
MC says stay home. I agree, man. I'll tell you what. Last year, just a brief rundown: Jets, Patriots, Dolphins.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was at the Jets game, and we were going to go to the Bucs game against Tom Brady with our friend Andy. And after the Jets game, we just couldn't go. We were like, you know what? We're not going to go. It's like, this is crazy. So we got some spicy predictions. I don't know how spicy they are. I have no idea what Nick's are. He has no idea what mine are. I did release an article on Browns Wire that outlined 4 of my bold predictions. Ooh, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of those. And I got a couple of more freebies here for the old YouTube. So Nick, I will give away the floor. And it is to you, my friend. Give me your first bold prediction for the 2023 Browns season.
All right. So I'm going to start on kind of the more modest of the bold predictions, in my opinion. And so I wanted to start with something, if every bold prediction is pie in the sky, maybe that's a little too much. So my first bold prediction is that Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith will combine for 26 or more sacks. 26 is the floor. Last year, Zadarius had 10. Last year, Myles Garrett had 16. Combined, they had 26. I fully expect them to, at minimum, match that production. And if you got 26 sacks out of your defensive ends, you're cooking. But I would love to say 30, but that feels a little. Myles would probably be the defensive player of the year in that scenario. So I'm gonna stick with 26 because we're starting with a little more reasonable of these bold predictions, but that feels good. You've got at that point, more than likely, you've got both your defensive ends in double-digit sacks, or at least that's the way I'm thinking about it. So that's where I'm at. 26 or more sacks from the two Browns starting defensive ends.
So I'm going to go more because I think Myles Garrett gets 20 himself.
Okay.
I wrote this. This is actually one of the 4. It's just funny that you brought that up.
I did.
Yeah, it's one of the 4 that I wrote up was I think he breaks 20, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it was like 21 or something like that. Like, I think if this is what I'll say, if he stays healthy, which there's always something in the back half of the year. Last year, it was really weird because you had the car accident and he was still kind of battling through some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's had a groin injury. He had COVID, you know, you've had all these things where he's missed some time or wasn't 100%. And in turn, I think that has greatly affected his late season production. So that is the big caveat that I put is he's got to be healthy for 17 games. But if he's healthy for 17 games and the rest of his defensive line is relatively healthy, because somebody's going to miss some time. I get that. But if overall the major contributors contribute to most of the games, I think there's no reason he can't hit 20. He did 16 last year, where, what was it? Taven Bryan was second on the team with a 4.5 or something like that. I know it was Taven Bryan. I just don't remember how many sacks it was.
Wasn't a good number.
Yeah, it was like 4.5.
I did a stat in a tweet recently. Outside of Myles Garrett, the 3 other Browns starters, so Taven Bryan, Jordan Elliott, Jadeveon Clowney, combined for 7 sacks total.
Right.
Woof.
Sure.
What? I just like to react to that for a second there. I thought I was like, maybe I was starting out a little bit more reasonable, but man, you're Mr. Positivity today. I like this. I really like it.
Well, I mean, this is where this is how I kind of arrived to it. And the thing is just that number has been 16 2 years in a row. And 2 years ago, Jadeveon Clowney had nearly 10 sacks. So he got help that season.
True.
But if he can just will himself to 16 sacks, because that's what it feels like he did last year. He just willed himself and he just worked his ass off to get there. Like, I put these numbers up yesterday. You know, he had 73 pressures and 16 sacks. Darius Smith had 78 pressures and 10 sacks. Like, he's going to get double teamed. Yes, he is still going to get double teams, but they're not going to be able to double team him and have a tight end or running back chip him on all the plays. Like, there are several instances in several games where he's getting attention from 3 players, even if it's just a chip from the 3rd player. He's getting the tight end is being brought in there. He's almost never getting a one-on-one situation. And although he still is the best pass rusher on that team, so he's still going to get more double teams than anybody else, those chips are going to start going to Zadarius Smith because they're not going to be able to double team Zadarius Smith, but they'll put the running back over there or the tight end over there. And I just think even though he'll still get a ton of attention, he just needs to if he gets less attention in every game, does that add up to 4 more sacks this year? Absolutely.
So. Yeah.
And so that number is 20 because 16 and 16, if you say he gets 4 or 5 more because he has Jim Schwartz, who is one of the better defensive line coaches in terms of creativity and getting his best talents isolated in situations where they can feast and really flourish. And he's getting a little bit less attention because he's got other guys that can actually wreck games. So that gets 4 or 5. Is that 4? I think it's worth 4 or 5 sacks. That puts him at 20 or 21. So for me, I don't think it's outlandish that he gets 20 sacks if he stays healthy and if the rest of the line is relatively healthy. So I have a lot of confidence in that bold take, actually.
I think I like where your head's at. I think as we build up, I was like, okay, let's start with one that I feel like could be a little more reasonable. But I like it for all the reasons that you said. I think the improvement overall will benefit Miles. Like, this is definitely the best defensive line he's ever played on in Cleveland, in my opinion. But I think
I think it's the best coach too.
Yeah, well, that too. Somebody said to me today, the wide nine will dine, and I really like that. I'm all about that. But I just my last legitimate reason for feeling like Miles and Za'Darius are both going to be really productive in terms of sacks this year is just because I expect the offense to be a lot more productive. And so when you're playing with leads, when you're playing in obvious passing downs, like, that is not something that Miles has really had the luxury of doing a lot of his time here in Cleveland. Like, I would argue the only time really was that 2020 season when, the offense had like those big, like Baker had those like 4 touchdown halves a couple of different times, and they really were able to build leads. But overall, through the majority of Miles' career here, the offense hasn't been one that really would build like, okay, you're up 17 and the defensive ends are going to go to work. And I expect that to be the case, at least in a couple different instances this season. And that could really just skyrocket the production.
Yeah, I mean, that's an underrated aspect of like one thing about the Steelers being so good for so long is TJ Watt's gotten some of those opportunities, and TJ Watt has capitalized on those opportunities and earned the numbers and the accolades that he's gotten. So yeah, I can see that transferring over to Miles and that being a situation where okay, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, man. Give me number 2. What do you got? Number 2. Here?
I'm still going with. I'm still.
Yeah, I did number 1. I did.
Oh yeah. I guess we both kind of traded off that about the sack numbers. Okay, so my number 2 prediction is that the Browns, not only will the Browns have their first season of a back-to-back 1,000-yard wide receiver, but the Browns will have 2 1,000-yard wide receivers for the first time since Jarvis and Odell did it in the Freddie Kitchens, Todd Monken year. But I'm predicting that Amari Cooper is the first Browns wide receiver, incredibly, to go back-to-back seasons with 1,000 yards. And I'm predicting, in addition, Elijah Moore also hits that 1,000-yard mark. And if Elijah Moore hits 1,000 yards, Jacob, and you look back at that trade and you say they moved down 32 spots to get this dude, what a home run that is. What an absolute steal theft. You've got a guy on his rookie deal that you gave minimal assets to get. You still turn him that pick into Cedric Tillman in addition, who I think we're all pretty optimistic on. Now wearing 19, by the way. I think people are pretty excited about that 19 Tillman jersey. Might be flying off the shelves a little bit here soon.
Give me just.
Okay, take your time.
My headset is dying. I need to go grab the charging cable. I'll be right back. But I like what you're getting at.
But what we are going to charge up with is the fact that Andrew Berry's going to look really smart. And think about this narrative for anybody out there. All of a sudden, then you're going to be able to say the Browns gave up a 5th-round pick to get their first back-to-back 1,000-yard wide receiver ever, who, by the way, set his own personal best touchdown record last year. And who knows what he could do this year. But like, if you told me that Amari Cooper went double-digit touchdowns this year, I wouldn't think that would be surprising in the least. That he just had 9 with a combination of Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson. And so I very much think, especially when you open up the passing game, but then in combination, and honestly, I don't know a reasonable rushing total for Elijah Moore, but like if Elijah Moore had like 300 yards rushing, would that be out? I feel like that'd be good. But in addition to the 1,000 yards receiving, I feel like those two are going to be. I'm not sure. I was thinking about overall. So it's like at that point you're already at 2,000 yards passing for Deshaun Watson, and so I'm wondering then. I debated throwing in a Deshaun Watson over under in passing yards, and it may be foreshadowing a little bit, but I think from your 2 wide receivers, from your guys, you're going to have 2 that you're saying these two, Amari and Elijah are both going to have 1,000 yards or more. and I think that's an absolute home run. Jacob he's having a little bit of technical difficulty. Oh, but look, here he is. Oh, and I see Drew. Drew, you're saying Njoku needs to prove it this year. I agree. And I'll tell you what, I am really optimistic about David Njoku. I think he has shown chemistry with Deshaun from the first, even in that 6-game stint. Like David Njoku caught the first touchdown Deshaun threw. We saw him catch another touchdown here in preseason. I read a stat about David Njoku's red zone targets and how they were among. I think David Njoku's red zone targets were second only to Travis Kelce, which is certainly something. And I wanted to say, Drew, we definitely are going to have to link up at this Indianapolis game because we're bringing home a win. We are bringing home a win, and I don't care who knows. That's where I'm at. I can't stay home, MC. If one random guy on the internet has that much influence to jinx his team, well, then I guess I'm living a sad time. But bouncing off of that, though, I actually wanted to go this route with it because I do believe that David Njoku is going to prove it this year. I do believe that David Njoku is going to have that year that we've been waiting for him to have, which, by the way, last year he quietly had his best year as a pro, and that was in an offense that was, I mean, we knew Jacoby Brissett liked tight ends, but I would expect that we're going to get a ton more passing yards from Deshaun Watson than we saw between he and Jacoby Brissett last year. So on top of this, my next bold take is that David Njoku goes for double-digit touchdowns in 2023. And I think that is something that's going to be so big because we've known for how long that David Njoku has been this guy we've talked about and emphasized his athleticism and just what he could do, but he always played in more limited passing games, or even when I felt like David Njoku could have turned the corner, then they have this trio, and it looks like, Jacob's. I can't hear you, Jacob, but we're working our way through. We're gonna get there. I believe in us. Don't worry. He's having a tough time, but I think for so many years we've spent all this time talking about what could David Njoku be and the what ifs and what are the ceilings of David Njoku. I'm not sure about his yards. I think he went for right around 700 last year. If you told me that David Njoku was a 1,000-yard tight end, I wouldn't think that was the most shocking thing in the world. I just don't think if Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper are both going over 1,000 yards, I don't think. But could David Njoku, this athletic freak who's like 6'4" and had the most second most red zone targets of all tight ends last year, could he have double-digit touchdowns? I absolutely think so. I don't think that's outlandish at all. He's your mismatch. He's a guy that Deshaun keeps looking to, and I just think that we're gonna see a great year from David Njoku. I think you know what, I don't think you need to have the greatest. Like, David Njoku doesn't need to have 1,000 yards next season to be successful to me. If he's scoring touchdowns, if he's that guy that's creating the mismatches, and because the Browns didn't always have the easiest time in the red zone last year. And so I think one of the biggest ways to improve that, or one of the easiest ways to improve that, is to just exploit your mismatches. If you've got a guy that can reasonably throw fades and can be that accurate passer that can truly get the ball to where it needs to be, I think David Njoku is set up to beat the guy that he's going to be lined up against almost every time, especially in the red zone when you're working in those tight spaces. I think we've seen him so often be a factor in that situation, and it's just, to me, I feel like that is if you imagine this for a second, you've got Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore with 1,000 yards each. You've got David Njoku with 10 touchdowns. Then you sprinkle in, let's say David Njoku has somewhere around 700 yards, what he did last year, which I think he could certainly do more. But then on top of that, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones. Donovan Peoples-Jones was on pace at different times last year to get 1,000 yards. He fell short. I think he had about 800. You almost had 2,000 yards wide receivers last year, which is interesting when you think about it, because if I would have told you when the Browns added Jacoby Brissett that they would have they could potentially have 2,000-yard wide receivers. I feel like a lot of people would have laughed at that, and it damn near happened. I know Jacoby didn't play your whole year, but honestly, overall, Jacoby still was. There was a good deal of time there where the Browns were a top 10 offense with Jacoby Brissett. I feel like that to a extent gets swept under the rug. Ooh, do we have you? We might not have you.
Woo!
Hey, you did it. Where did you go?
How is it?
I can only imagine how many times you ran up and down the stairs.
Like at least 5. This show is quickly devolving as we watch. And we have a large audience too, larger than normal. And it's like, hey,
I just did a lot. I did a whole lot of talking. And it seemed, hey, they're still here. So
yeah,
kudos to everybody for listening to me just flap my gums for
number 2. Oh, God.
Okay, so while you were gone,
Yes.
I said 2 different things. I said that Amari Cooper is going to be the Browns' first wide receiver to go back-to-back 1,000 yards, and Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore are both going to have 1,000-yard receiving years. On top of that, I said double-digit touchdowns for David Njoku. That is,
okay.
I just dropped it all right there because I was thinking about saying the Browns could have 3 guys. And if David Njoku flirted with 1,000 yards, that wouldn't shock me. But
It's just going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. So double-digit touchdowns for David Njoku plus 2,000-yard wide receivers. I mean, I think we're cooking, Jacob. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Well, I'm a little. I feel tired. For anybody that's joining, I was trying to get this. My headset was dying. I was trying to get my charging cable that for some reason wasn't up here. And I was like, where the hell is this thing?
Thank you.
And I finally found it. Yeah, like it's really interesting that the Amari Cooper thing, because it's kind of shocking to me that you're looking at that they've never had back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
Like just, and I get it, like Ozzie Newsome didn't do it, you know what I mean? Like, and but I mean, like I guess they haven't had a ton of really like dominant wide receivers that or pass catchers that were there in consecutive seasons, because like Braylon Edwards had 1 season and then he was just a disaster. So did Kellen Winslow
and Josh Gordon.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that's actually kind of surprising, and I guess
Yeah.
it's probably from suspensions, but I feel like he played long enough in a couple of seasons that he could have potentially gotten there.
Yeah.
I think he had like a 6 or 7 yard 100. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think Amari, I was asked a question last year about, in a mailbag, about what is the kind of wide receiver that works best with Deshaun Watson? Like, what are you looking for when you're like trying to build a wide receiver core? And I think that Watson is kind of thrives on the accuracy and his ability to put the ball in very tight windows. And to me, that makes me think of Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is always in the exact spot he's supposed to be at the exact time he's supposed to be there. And you saw he didn't have a lot. He had Njoku and Cooper. There wasn't a lot that was really threatening when he came back in those 6 games. And of course he struggled, and there was a lot of things that were going on in that situation. But you could see that Amari Cooper had a rapport with him in those final 6 games. And of course he misses some time in training camp, and Elijah Moore becomes the shiny new toy, and he gets all of this attention. That's why Elijah Moore, I think, goes for 1,000. It's just because if he's healthy, like Watson has shown already in training camp in the preseason, not totally in the preseason because he just didn't play a ton, but he's already shown that like you were getting daily highlights from 8 as he was throwing to him and that sort of thing. And I think that really shows just really shows that how much that relationship has kind of started to develop between the two of them. But yeah, I would really be shocked if Amari doesn't go for 1,000 if he's healthy.
Agreed.
And you could see him miss some time if he's this year, just because. And I think this is the year that they could afford to lose some games from some of their wide receivers because I think they have a pretty good room top to bottom there. But yeah, man, I don't think it's that crazy to think that they could do that. And with Njoku, I just keep getting told from people that are there that he's been unguardable this in training camp. The Eagles like guarded him pretty well in one of the joint practices, and that was what I heard was the only practice he got guarded. And he loves that tight end in the red zone, and we've seen that. And Njoku, like that touchdown he throws to Njoku in the Kansas City Chiefs game where he just like drops it in the bucket. That's the sort of stuff that's creating a mismatch problems. That is exactly what David Njoku has been sold as. That's what you always get told. Like he's this big athletic freak at that size. He shouldn't be able to move the way he moves and all of that stuff. And it creates mismatch problems. Well, he now has the quarterback to exploit those mismatch problems. And I don't think 10 touchdowns in any way, shape, or form is outlandish.
Okay. You know what? A couple things. I looked up in Josh Gordon's best year with the Browns, he averaged 117 yards a game. If he hadn't been suspended, he would have blown that number over the course of 16 games. Let's say that even comes down a little bit. He's still averaging about 100 yards a game. So he'd be on pace for a casual 1,600 yard receiving here after leading
just casually.
But
just casually.
I just feel like Njoku has never had that guy that can drop it in the bucket. Like Baker Mayfield that's not the type of thrower that Baker Mayfield is. He's just not, especially
in
the red zone.
He needs you to high point it. He needs
when the field scrunches down, Baker Mayfield is not that guy. And Jacoby Brissett, I feel like really did not prove it, and that's okay. It's just not something that was in their repertoire. Well, that's in Deshaun Watson's repertoire, and that's how you get guys like that so open, because you can just throw them open at that point because you've got it's a mismatch. It's an easy, obvious mismatch, and I think it's going to be a big problem solver of some of the red zone issues that the Browns have had.
Yeah. So that leads me into my next bold prediction, which is that Deshaun Watson will break the single season passing yardage and touchdown records for the Browns in 2023. The touchdown record is not that hard. He only needs to throw 31 touchdown passes to have the single season. 30 is the number, but Brian Sipe holds both records. During the 1980 season, he threw for 4,132 yards and 30 touchdowns. As I mentioned in the article, this offense has been tailored to Deshaun Watson. There's been a lot said from Watson, from his coaches, about how he's been given the keys. And if he is the guy he was in Houston, he's the kind of guy you can rely on giving the keys to. And I think we have seen for the last couple of seasons, I watched Stefanski scheme open dudes that haven't been. Think about this. Everybody was so angry when Rashard Higgins gets cut.
Yep.
What's he done outside of Cleveland and Kevin Stefanski? Oh, that's right. Okay. But the point is, like, this dude was running wide open. Jarvis, who was really banged up his last year and just gutting it out, running open. Jarvis was not that hyper athletic, quick twitch athlete at the last season because he was banged up, but these guys were open. And now you've mixed that with an actual elite franchise quarterback, and and you've given him more weapons than you ever gave Baker Mayfield. And that's not like to really be, well, I guess Baker did have like Njoku, OBJ, and Jarvis that 1 year.
Well, yeah.
But you had Freddie Kitchens. So I should say this. You've given him, I still think he has better weapons than Baker did, but he's got a more complete room than Baker did, a much better coach than Baker did when he had that talent at wide receiver, even though technically there was that carryover season and that was kind of weird and blah, blah, blah. But I still think this room is so much more deep than those teams. And it's just absolutely the most talented passing offense that this team has seen, that I've ever seen. And on paper, so to speak. And so I think he easily breaks 42, 43, 4,400 yards, somewhere in that range, and throws 35 to 40 touchdowns. So I think they're going to air it out a ton. And I think that they have the pieces in place to be really prolific.
Like those numbers are literally a level of quarterback play that Cleveland has never seen. In terms of volume, right? A guy who could, so what? Neither one of us. So if you are, let's play this game real quick. So if you're not about 50-ish, somewhere in there, you didn't see Autogram throw for 4,000 yards. So you're talking about like multiple generations of people that have not even dreamt of a Browns quarterback reaching that type of level. These are bold predictions, Jacob. I like it. I'm here for it. For whatever reason, I'm not really sure why, because I feel like our dynamic is you're more like the tempered guy, and you're like, well, I'm in, but I'm not sure, like, and I'll get like way up here, and I feel like we've kind of flip-flopped a little bit. I have like cautious optimism rather than like full blown, like Deshaun is throwing for 4,400 yards, 30 some touchdowns, and just blowing away every Browns record because that's what that is. That's his record shattering performance.
Well, and if you're going to be a consistent top 10, top 15 passing offense, you're going to be throwing for 4,000 yards a season. Like that's where the NFL is.
Yep.
So if you believe that's where this team is talent-wise, then I think that without actually doing the math, because that was the thing, as I sat down to write this, and I was like, okay, like his last season in Houston sets the record. Like that sets the records. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like he threw for more than 4,100 yards and he threw for more than 30 touchdowns. So you're
for 4,800 yards and like 30. I don't remember exactly, but I remember doing these tweets when Deshaun first came to Cleveland, and I was like, if he just did what he did in 2020, he'd own every Browns single season quarterback record there is.
It's like I just look at the numbers and I look at what he's done, and I look at all, when you add everything together, I look at all the data, the film, the talent, all this crap that I look at, way too much. And I say, yeah, man, like it's actually not that far-fetched. Like,
can you imagine the narrative change for Kevin Stefanski if he got not one, not two, but three of the best professional seasons out of three different quarterbacks in his, what at that point it would be 5 years in Cleveland?
Four. Yeah,
so
this is fun.
Think about that for a second. I just that is a bananas. If there's one thing that I want to change almost more than anything else, it is the narrative on Kevin Stefanski, because of all the things you could talk about, when you talk positively about Kevin Stefanski, there is legitimate pushback on that, and I think
and they can fight me.
So there is almost nothing I want more. Then, Brown Super Bowl is obviously the pinnacle, but the narrative to change at Kevin Stefanski is easily one of the most.
I just thought about the fact that I was like, yeah, you guys can fight me after you experience me be completely out of breath after going up and down a flight of stairs 4 times. Like, oh yeah, we're real scared of you.
I feel like we created a Barking Browns historical moment. Like,
I'm sure it's coming back. I'm sure it'll come back.
With some Charlie Chaplin.
It'll be like freaking the middle of March or middle of April, and somebody will just get bored and they'll clip that up and just send it to me on like a Thursday afternoon. Like, remember when you looked this stupid for like 5 to 10 minutes? Like it was a quality amount of time.
You never know when you're going to make new show history, Jacob.
I was knowing. Okay. Number 3 for me, as we're getting close to the end of the show. I got to jump on a Ravens podcast, so we can't fart around. Jim Schwartz eventually, I don't know if it's overall. I think it's overall in the season, but I think by the end of the season, it's a top 10 defense. I've gone back and forth with wanting to, like, I very much tried to be tempered in these things. And I'm not putting my name to something that I don't truly believe can happen and that I have some kind of merit in saying. Like, I can't back it up. But I look at the pass rusher numbers. That's where it starts, man, is you got to get after the passer. Mm-hmm. Well, I think they can do that. I think they can do that really well.
Absolutely.
I think their linebackers, if healthy, being kept clean, I think they're pretty good. Like, again, a lot of unprovenness and a lot riding on people staying healthy that have had injury history, like Anthony Walker. And I know Sione Takitaki doesn't really have a long injury history, but he's somehow recovered from a December ACL injury already. So
amazing, honestly.
I wouldn't be shocked if he's not active on Sunday.
Wow.
Like, if you're just like, hey, we think he'll be here week 2, 3, or 4, so we don't want to put him on short-term IR, but maybe not week 1. Like, I could see something.
Okay,
something
I could live with that.
I'm looking at the corner situation, and I'm nervous. I wrote an article for Browns Wire. I'm nervous about Denzel Ward's concussion history. That concerns me quite a bit. But I love Martin Emerson. I love Greg Newsome. I'm not sure what the hell's going on in the slot even when Denzel's healthy. I think Juan Thornhill is finally a true free safety that they need. Grant Delpit is ready to blossom. Rodney McLeod is one of the most underrated signings, I think, in the offseason because he's a coach on the field, a player that people gravitate to. I just look across the board and I say maybe they stumble a little bit trying to figure things out and have some growing pains. But like Jim Schwartz said, they're working on making things simple. They're not worried about overthinking you. They think they can go out there. And with their talent, if they do their jobs, it doesn't matter if you know what coverage they're running. They think they're talented enough to do it. And so I think some of those growing pains of adjusting to a new system when it's I think it'll get more complex as the year goes on, but I think there's a lot of simplicity in what he wants to do. He just wants to rush the passer, play man coverage, and mess with your quarterback. And I think overall, I think he's got a lot of talent and he's got a pedigree that shows he understands how to utilize it. And I think that by the end of the year, they're flirting around the top 10 in total defense.
I know it's not exactly an even comparison, but the simplicity aspect gives me such Seattle Seahawks, like Richard Sherman era vibes where I remember the Seahawks would play on national TV and the analysts would just say, Richard Sherman is staying on that side of the field. Yeah. He's not moving no matter what receiver is going where. And you know exactly what the Seahawks are doing, and they're just going to do it and be better at it than you are.
And Jake Burns has talked about that too. Over at the OBR, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he said most of the defenses do 3 things really, really well, and they don't care if you know because they do it so well.
You know what? I love that take. Aside from Denzel Ward, you have as healthy of his defense as you could possibly ask for.
Interestingly enough, yeah.
We'll see what the Ward situation develops into because I saw some people say Ward's going to be fine, and I really don't think the reports have echoed that. And so I think you have to be careful with concussions when it happened in that final preseason game. I was really worried about it then. So that's but I'm not here to linger on that. We'll see what happens with Ward. The rest of the defense, especially you think about the defensive tackle was easily your biggest hole last year. And I think you've more than solved that position. There's true depth there now that I at least feel decent about, whereas last year I didn't even feel good about the starters. So I feel like that is a drastic improvement. Your pass rush, you go so many deep in the defensive end room, and I love having Anthony Walker back. We know it was a different defense without him on the field, and then he gets hurt. So you have a little bit better health luck this year, maybe, and you have a vastly improved scheme. Why the wide 9 will dine? I'm going to use it. I can't remember who to credit.
You said dine, not die.
Dine.
You said the wide 9 will die. And I'm like, no,
not that.
No.
I like it, Jacob.
What microphones? I got a Turtle Beach. These are my PlayStation controller.
Oh.
There's a Turtle Beach. I think Nick, do you have a microphone?
No, well, I do have a microphone, but I'm just using my laptop's
He's got a really nice laptop, so that's probably because
Definitely.
your sound is really good. It's always been really good. I
Oh,
think
thank
it's because you never had a piece of crap Chromebook like I did.
You know what, Jacob? I wasn't sure how high I was going to reach, but I really feel like you've got the vibes high. You've got me reaching high. My final bold prediction of the show is going to be that the Browns are going to win a minimum of one playoff game in 2023. So at worst, you are looking at going to the conference semifinals and being right back where you were against. I mean, I'm not sure who to be against, but remember that Chiefs game. Remember what it felt like to win a playoff game and to say, if we win this game, we're going to the AFC Championship game. I think the Browns are going to be in that situation.
Can I tell you who I want it to be?
Yes.
I want it to be the Bengals, and this is why. It's funny because last night I predicted they would lose the final game to the Bengals and beat them in the first game.
Okay. But
a part of me would love what happened in 2020 to happen again, where like the Browns win. Rather that game matters or not, because like it mattered for the Browns but not the Steelers in 2020. I don't know if it'll matter to both teams. It could be for the division. That final game could be for the division in Cincinnati, and that would be awesome. But I would love to, like, even if you lost to them, because then you drew them again like the next in the wild card.
Man.
Because there's been a lot of and I gotta give some of the Bengals fans credit. They got some good trash talkers over there. They got some really pathetic, very sensitive fans, and so do we. And I'm probably one of them. But that's why I don't tweet anymore very much. But like, there's been some just epic amounts of trash talk. And we've earned a lot of it because it's like, we don't win a lot of games. But if we go in and beat them in the playoffs.
Talk about unseating the darling of the NFL right now.
We're going to be even worse than when we beat the Steelers in the playoffs, because like we weren't trash talking the Steelers all off season before that.
Yeah.
But we have been with the Bengals because of the whole, Joe Burrow can't beat them, blah, blah, all that good stuff. It's like, whatever. So my final one, the Browns win the AFC North. So my original final bold prediction was that they would win 12 games, but I've already done that on this show and on the show that we did yesterday. And so I'm like, well, I can't really do that. So, but I will say they win the AFC North, and I will say and that means there's a good chance they beat Cincinnati because
maybe.
I just really, I don't know why. And I haven't seen I haven't gone like game by game on the Bengals schedule to know if it'll matter. You know what I mean? Like, cause a lot of things have got to happen for that final game to like be for the division or something like that.
Yeah.
I base everything I say on here and that I write based on what I see in the data and what I see on the film and putting all of that together and making educated guesses. That's all we're doing. We're making educated guesses. Some more educated than others and some more accurate than others. I don't know, but like, I don't want to be like this full blown hype machine, but like, I look at this first game and I'm just like, they've been disrespected all off season. And listen, when the stuff around the quarterback, I get all of that. I get everything about that. I get the 6 games. I get the off the field. I get all of that. And I don't blame anybody. But those people in the building hear it too. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think he's a franchise quarterback. And I think he's been giving the tools to an offense that he's been given the keys to an offense that has tools he's never had before. I even took Jordan Akins as my last pick in a fantasy league last night.
Really?
It's the Sports for CLE at Cleveland.com fantasy league.
Okay, cool. Why not?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, who was you going to take in like the 18th round? I was just like Jordan Akins. I needed a third tight end, and apparently it's really important because I got Travis Kelce, who's probably not going to play now this week. So it's
Man, brutal for them, but not complaining
Really
one
did.
bit. You know what? Because this is something I have to like really shift my focus back to too. Like we got to the point after the Browns beat the Steelers, all of a sudden we were like talking about like the rest of the AFC teams because we're like we care about AFC seeding now because our goals and aspirations should reasonably be the playoffs. Well, then I feel like we dialed it back once Deshaun got suspended for 11 games, and we're like, well, we're probably not going to make the playoffs with Jacoby Brissett. So now we got to start caring about that again. So honestly, like go Lions, one pride, I think. Yeah, one pride.
It is. So we're trying to get some socks out.
We're picking our winner tomorrow, some punk. And I got to say, I remember you came and joined us up. I think it was a few weeks ago now, and you're still here. So thank you to you, and thank you to everybody that.
We think he's the good luck charm. Remember, his first year.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So we're gonna hope, but I'll tell you what. We've talked about the list of Browns things that I want to change. People saying the Jaguars have won the AFC North more recently than the Browns have gets under my skin. And I probably shouldn't admit that. It gets deep.
No, you shouldn't have.
And stuck under there. Because I that's neither here nor there. The Browns need to change that. That needs to change. I cannot stand it. They need to win the AFC North. It has to happen. And it would be first to enter Cleveland Browns Stadium's first ever playoff game.
I won't be there. Don't ask.
Oh, you're coming.
No, it's coming.
We know you're coming. That's history. That's history. You could say you were at the first playoff game that the Cleveland ever hosted since building that stadium. They built that stadium in 1999. We were 9. I'm 33.
Yeah. And I would be 33 by the time the playoff game.
Think about that. I mean, come on. You got to go. Just saying. You know what? You got me sipping the Kool-Aid. I have Kool-Aid jammers in the fridge. I'm going to go get a Kool-Aid jammer and I'm going to sip it because of you. I didn't know you were going to bring this level of hype and intensity. I'm proud of you. This is awesome.
So we'll do winners and losers after the game. We got a pregame going on. We will be calling in for live from the Muni lot during Sunday's pregame show here on the YouTube channel.
Hopefully.
They got a really nice, depending on the internet situation, they got a really cool show coming out tomorrow for the Faithful Dogs. They're title it There Will Be Fireworks, I believe is what they're calling it. So you want to check that out here on the channel live tomorrow at 8. We are going to get out of here, let you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening, but my God, we will see you guys in 5 days.
Don't forget.
And we are ready to, I believe the kids say, party.
If we're even half accurate with all of the predictions Jacob and I just made, you are in for one hell of a Browns season. And I think I speak for both of us when I say there is nothing we want more. Just to celebrate and be here with you guys for fun, Victory Mondays, giveaways, hype, fun, the whole thing it should be. Beautiful thing of sports. So with that said, this has been episode 119 of the Barking Brown Show. Wow, I remembered. 119, almost 120, 120 next week. I'm Nick.
Oh, it's 118, I guess. I don't know.
118. Thank you. 118. Hey, their quota filled. Boom. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
Pomegranate's underrated fruit.